Anyway, hello. Welcome to the Future of CTV Monetization. It's a fireside chat with Matt Hill, who's the head of device monetization at Amazon Fire TV. And I'm Gavin Bridge, the senior media analyst at Variety Intelligence Platform, which is Variety's little unit that covers CTV and things like that in more detail than the magazine would. Matt, hello. Welcome.
Hello.
Before we begin, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at Amazon?
Yeah. So my name is Matt Hill. I've been at Amazon now for 11 and a half years, so I officially qualify as an old fart, as we call it within Amazon. But I currently lead the monetization strategy for Fire devices, which means I work with all of our revenue-generating teams, whether it be our advertising for display and video, or some of our transactional teams, or some of our subscription apps and businesses. So I work with a large number of teams across Amazon to kind of figure out what it looks like to build monetization strategies within the living room. And I've also worked within Prime Video. I ran the transactional team for a number of years, and then I started actually launching Kindles in tablets, believe it or not, way back in the day. But yeah, that's a high level about me at Amazon. But prior to this, I actually worked with several people here. When I was at Warner Brothers, I worked in their home entertainment division.
So well steeped in entertainment.
Yes. Keep coming back. Can't get away from it.
I guess a good way to begin this would be, we're talking about connected TV and CTV. How do you define it at Amazon or Fire TV?
Yeah, we're just chatting a little bit about this, but Amazon is a very acronym-heavy company, and we have nicknames for our teams and whatnot. But when we start talking about SVOD, if you look at the arc of the different media types, you started with TVOD, and then SVOD came in, and that was very simple for customers to understand. I subscribe, it's an a la carte type of thing, and for our leadership teams to understand. And then AVOD, okay, there's an ad-supported component to it. But then as we've gotten over the last couple of years, the FAST acronym actually had to be a discussion of like, okay, well, what is FAST? And that actually, built up a lot of questions that we had internally. But it allowed us to be able to have that conversation with leadership, is that it's actually, in its truest form, this is what ad-supported is. It's free for the consumers. And it's not that hybrid model where there's different tiers and whatnot. If anything, this is actually very simple to explain to them. So when we think about defining it, it really is just that this is free and trying to get that proposition to customers. But free, it has to come with that clarification of what it is that gets it free for them. So there, I guess to get back to your question, there's a lot of different ways we can define it, but FAST actually ends up being one of the purest ways that we can say, this is the value proposition, this is what you get. And then here are other things you can do, which are also very valuable for customers, but require a little bit more explanation.
Well, I think we can get later on with some of the questions, we'll talk a bit more about FAST and consumption trends, because that's obviously one thing I cover a lot of as well. I think it's a very interesting space. But before we get to that, how is the Fire TV business? I mean, what is the size and scale of what's happening with Fire TV?
Yeah, it's as I'm sure most of people have experienced over the last couple of years, it's been very interesting. But we're now over 150 million devices sold worldwide. We're in 80 countries, and we have over 100 devices that have integrated the Fire OS. And so the scale has gotten to a point where it allows us to start thinking about solving customer problems, but then also creating revenue streams and monetization and things like that. So the business has grown quite considerably, especially over the last couple of years. And that's created a good opportunity for my team to start thinking about what are we doing as kind of the next step to begin building a business that we love, that works for customers, that's solving their problems, and really kind of take advantage of the opportunity size that we now have.
I mean, one thing that I think is kind of wild, mind-blowing from what you guys are doing is the recent, well, I don't know if it's recent, but the announcements you've had with car manufacturers with Fire TV. Mm-hmm. How does one have Fire TV in a car?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting when you think about when we launched tablets, there was the kind of like sync where you could watch something, and then when you got back to your home, you could pick up where you left off. And when you think about the Echo devices in your home, you're using them in a number of different rooms, you're engaging with them, and it just kind of works seamlessly for the customer. Auto came about because we were getting context about, I'm listening to things, I'm watching things, and I'm about to go out of my home. How do I think about using this product, this content that I love, outside of the home? And so really it kind of came from customer inquiries, customer service calls, where we were starting to get things that were clear that this was something we could solve for customers. And so when we started talking to automotive partners, they were experiencing very similar things, where they're developing their own tech, their own operating systems, but when you try and think about all of the things that they're trying to do, this was a clear area that we could partner and actually bring some benefit. So the car component is really just kind of that extension of I'm listening, I'm watching something, and I'm able to keep going. And now I can pick that up when I'm on the move, when I'm on a family trip or things like that. So the partnerships that we've made and with BMW upcoming, we're really excited about the innovations we have there. But really it kind of started with that, like, we think there's an opportunity to innovate for something for the customers here, and really just kind of listening to the feedback that we are getting from them.
It's, I think, a very interesting development because it's CTV outside the home, and you're obviously, I guess you'd be connected within the user footprint, so you're still the same profile. But I'm just wondering, because I don't know myself, and I'm sure many people out here might not know, are we talking more like screens in the back of chairs, or are we talking like screens on windshields and people, or is that more futurist? How does it work?
Well, I'll leave it to the product team to decide where they should go. But right now it's kind of in, the entertainment in the back of the car, because you still want to keep, similar to the living room, like when you're in that experience, you want to make sure that it's driving is sole purpose, in that case driving obviously. But in the case of what you're getting in the living room, you want that to be a lean back experience. And so you take that lean back experience, you create it into the back seat of the car, and you're able to kind of take that, as you said, connected TV outside of the home, and it just works. And that's the thing that you want, is that I pick up where I left off, I'm able to continue doing what I was doing when I was in my home, and it just works seamlessly.
I think that's a cool, very cool innovation. We'll obviously see more of in the next 5 or 10 years when we're living in the Jetsons.
Yes.
Finally in the Jetsons world.
Finally in the Jetsons.
What are the revenue streams, I expect maybe like more the connected TV revenue streams at Fire TV that you are responsible for?
Yeah, when you think about the different ways that a Fire TV service can create opportunity for our brands and for our app developers, there's a bunch of different ways. And so you think about, obviously, distribution of a direct-to-consumer app. You think about the Prime Video side of our business and what they do from a subscription through Prime Video channels, or what they do with the TVOD business, where you can transact on new movies and new TV shows. But then when you look to the advertising side, advertising presents a great opportunity for brand managers and for developers, because really it's creating that kind of opportunity where there's supply and demand, interest from customers to discover their next best thing, and interest from developers to be able to serve that content to them in a relevant manner. And so the display advertising business and then the video advertising business, obviously in-app, is a huge component of what we do. And we think about that because as you look at how you're serving things to customers, the goal is to try and get them engaged with the content they love as soon as possible. And if you can help them discover things that are relevant to them, and you create that opportunity for a brand or for a content developer to get to a customer in an efficient manner, it really creates a big opportunity for both parties. And it really goes back to like when we first launched and started getting into the device business as a .com retailer. Jeff Bezos was talking about how we monetize our devices when customers use them, not when they buy them. And so that's really a way of how do you connect the customers with those advertisers and with those brand partners that are looking to get to those customers in an efficient manner. And if it feels relevant for the customer, you've created a great opportunity for both sides.
And so for you, that covers Freevee TV, Prime Video, the NFL, like.
Yeah, the NFL is Prime Video, so I'll leave that to them to comment on. But yeah, IMDb TV are now Freevee, in terms of what we're doing on a fast component. Again, very simple value proposition of free content integrated into the device that we're able to provide to customers. They know what the trade-off is, they know what they're getting for it. And when we get that into that ad experience, we're still thinking about how do we innovate beyond what they might have experienced when they were in the linear world, or how do we make it, again, relevant for them. And so there's that component of it. Prime Video obviously being just a massive library and what they offer from not only originals and the content that's coming from that end, but then from streaming and subscription and transactional, so that's a business line in and of itself. And that's a great partner for us in terms of how we think about getting our most engaged user base, Prime members, onto a Fire TV and getting them engaged with the content they love. And so that's a big part of it. The NFL is, that partnership for Thursday Night Football is quite exciting, but I still think that, that's a tried and true medium, but when you get to what we're excited to do this fall, there's gonna be some new features that we'll be unveiling.
Talking to Freevee briefly, I'm not saying this because Matt's here, but I do think that is definitely one that is one of the fast services to watch as an emerging one because of not only the investments in original content, but my theory is the MGM deal with the TV. No one focused on the TV side of MGM, and I'm like, that's where there's going to be money. So keep your eye on Freevee.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know if it was your article or somebody else's, but somebody was talking about, the reason that Amazon acquired MGM. And it's funny because like when you think of the inputs that you want to drive a compelling fast business, it is content. You want to have breadth of content. You want to have selection. But that is something that we were doing through originals and through other efforts, not necessarily a motivating factor for why, okay, where can we go acquire something? But yes, content is a main input, having enough content to engage customers. But the MGM opportunity was something that, frankly, I wasn't involved with, but didn't necessarily play out in a manner, as it might be seeing that we're just going to put everything into freebie.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily how we approach that type of deal, because there are many other opportunities that you could do with a library like MGM.
Mm-hmm. So one stat that really caught my eye about Fire TV is the reach that you have in the US, the monthly average users. With Fire TV users and Twitch combined, it's what, 135 million?
135 unique reach that we can do between the connected TV and Twitch. And Twitch, why do you always add Twitch in there? We add Twitch in there because it is just a massive opportunity and a customer base that shouldn't be ignored. And so we think about them as not only a key component of our overall strategy, but the unique reach that Twitch brings to the conversation not only amplifies what we can do for connected TV, but really makes that an overall efficient flywheel for some of our advertisers.
It's just a staggering number, so I feel like it's a really good thing to note, because, and you're actually giving a US number. That's my whole thing I'm doing later today, is about the lack of measurement in FAST, and you're actually giving out a US number, so that's to be applauded, because I don't think anyone else does.
We let some data out every now and then. We're not necessarily forthcoming, but yeah, we let some things out every now and then.
So clearly, connected TV is driven by people watching streaming content. What trends have you been seeing across Fire TV with live TV viewing?
Live is a huge component of it, and I think you'll see when we look at some of the things that we're doing with our news platform. News is not the most, it's not that full lean back experience. I'm going to watch and binge news for the next 5 to 10 hours. That's not necessarily it. But we started with our Fire News program because it really kind of goes back to that auto component of where a customer was reaching out and talking about how they were creating this daily habit of consuming their updates. And they had to go in and out of different app experiences, and so they like to jump around. And so one of the things we're seeing is not only live, but the local component. And so live news, but then the local component really provided an opportunity for us to invent and simplify for what we could do on the news space. And that's really where we've taken that, aggregated it into an entirely free experience where you're able to move around, you're able to go from live to local to VOD, and it allows you to try and get different perspectives. And so when you think about taking something like live or local or just news in general, that creates an aggregated free experience that works for customers, solves some of the pain points that they had of jumping between apps and trying to get into different experiences. And you can imagine how you could think about that aggregated experience working for a bunch of different other categories. And so there's really opportunity, and on the live front, there's obviously a huge movement for customers coming from the more linear, traditional, this is where I watch and consume live content, to that moving over into the connected space and the OTT space. And you can see sports being a big part of that. You can see those kind of eventized, kind of zeitgeist events that really kind of draw those. But as a baseline, there's definitely some live components that customers are looking for. And you're starting to see app developers and even some of our own services start to think about ways to connect with them, Thursday Night Football being one of them, because that really kind of, again, solves that problem of I'm looking to consume this, where do I do it, how easy is it for me? Whereas, well as before, I just had a cable subscription, it worked, and I just had to find the channel. We've kind of been in this world where it's the in-between, where you've got a very simple, maybe confusing experience if you can't find what you're looking for, but then making the jump to OTT hasn't quite invented the way that customers are looking for, and I think that's where the opportunity comes in with aggregated services like what we're looking for news.
Well, I say on news, if you're not aware, local TV news is probably the fastest growing category on FAST. I look at the number of channels growing every month, and there's just more and more affiliates launching live feeds. And I think Fire TV was one of the first to feature it. And it makes sense because if you're trying to get people in who used to watch regular TV, news is one of the anchors, right, of watching regular TV. So if you can find that on your Fire TV device without having to switch out another input, then you've got them there for longer.
Yeah, it's that daily habit. I mean, and again, it goes back to what we were hearing from customers through our contacts. They wanted something that supported what they did every morning. and they couldn't do that with ease. And so that's really where news came about, or the Fire News experience came about, because we could solve that. We saw a way to solve that. And yes, we started with the national broadcasters. We've added more national broadcasters in the last couple months. But the local component has really added that reach and honestly, monthly active user base that we weren't hitting on before.
So really good boost. Another thing you've been doing with live viewing is unique experiences, right? Like you did something around the Winter Olympics. Could you inform a little about that?
It's funny, like when you think about how kind of the news came about of like these massive events, Summer Olympics, Winter Olympics, Super Bowl. It's like, oh, the ratings were down, right? But ratings is talking about linear. When you look at what's happening in the digital space, we've seen tremendous growth, and we've been able to introduce some new products that actually show live ingress points directly on the home UI. And so like what we did for Winter Olympics, we not only created kind of an aggregated experience where you could see everything that is taking place, but then jump in directly from within one click from turning on the Fire TV, and I'm able to get into watching, curling as my kids got into this winter with one click. But that kind of solved the problem of I want to watch something on right now. I don't know how to find where it is. I don't know if I have the app downloaded. I don't even know if I'm subscribed to it. In this case, we were able to make a great partnership and actually create that live ingress point directly from the home UI. And it was quite engaging, and it really worked. And when you think about how you could use that for not only other live events, but other zeitgeist events, it really creates an opportunity for the customer to jump into what they're looking for with ease.
It's a very interesting proposition, considering like the Fire TV isn't just a device, it powers televisions too. So you're saying like you turn on the TV and you've got basically a video equivalent of a hyperlink on the homepage. It's being like, watch this now. Yeah. And you can get into that. So I can see how that would be a really good opportunity.
Yeah, my previous experience was to jump into whatever app I had downloaded if I was already aware that that was the app that was broadcasting that content. So now you kind of like, okay, remove the questions of do I have this downloaded, remove the questions of where is it at, and show them how they can jump into that right away.
I hope that is the future for everyone, because I watch the Premier League, and the amount of times I'm like, is this game on Peacock? Yeah. Is it on cable? And you're just like, it's like roulette, and you just don't know which one you're going to get, and you get it right or wrong.
Those are, I mean, the Premier League are massive spike events. They're almost like a tentpole or theatrical release in terms of like, when a customer is looking for something, they are really looking for it, and when they find it, they are engaged for a very long period of time. And so yes, what we see with some of the streaming trends we have in Europe, that's a key component of it. Because again, you have the need for customers to find something, and if they're able to find it with ease, then you get that kind of viewing experience that they're looking for.
What are the current and future opportunities within CTV for content providers? It's a clearly massive question. You can split that up any way you want, but let's start with current. What are the current opportunities for content providers for CTV?
I think that we're still trying to find the connection between, when you think about the customer base that we have and the customer base that our service partners have within Amazon, but then externally, there's that large kind of like Venn diagram of where the customers are overlapping. And so really what we're trying to do is work with our developers and our brands to drive the customers that they want, the acquisition component, the engagement component, and then the retention component. Because if you have all three of those, that really does create the monetization opportunity for not only a service such as Fire TV, but then some of our partners as well. And so when we look at it, we want to find that discovery piece, and it really comes back to getting them into the service, getting them into the content, getting them, meaning the end customer, into the content they love. And so when you think about some of the display ad products we have, when we use our customer insights that we have, on average, we're finding that they're 40% more efficient when we use that interest-based customer segments that we have for broadcasters, for content owners, for app developers to be able to find those customers is 40% more efficient. And so I think in a lot of cases, when you think about those three components of, it used to be let's grow fast, let's find as many customers, let's acquire as many customers as we can. And that was especially true over the last 2 years where the numbers were spiking so great. But now we're moving into the point where, okay, we acquired a lot, we need to keep them engaged in the services and the content that that provider or our services have, but then retention is going to be a huge component of that. And I think that's where the targeting piece and the efficiency of using the display products to really get that customer that you're looking for is really going to help. And I think retention over the next couple of years is really going to be a big component of not only what we want to see with our monthly active user base, but then also what our app developers want to see.
You also have some really cool stuff going on with Fire TV, like the Luna integration. So it's not just TV content on Fire TV, right? There's integration with gaming now as well.
Yeah, in gaming, again, it came about similar to the automotive component, where you think about like what is a lean back experience that customers want that just is seamless, it goes where they go. Gaming is another component when you think about what we see with Twitch. There's a very large active user base that is engaged on a mobile basis. But the mobile screen, or even in some of the ways that that content is being consumed, you still have to go through multiple steps to get it to your living room. And so I think the Luna component kind of invented that opportunity to think about how do we bring this in a service that they already have. They may already have a Fire device, they may already be a Prime member, they may already be able to do a lot of things, but now you're bringing in this component of, all right, now we want to lean more forward into the living room gaming experience, because I think that really kind of goes into the line of what we were talking about the other services like automotive and whatnot. That solves an opportunity for a customer base that may not be looking to just come in and watch Miss Maisel for a couple episodes or whatnot. They may be looking for something else. And the living room hadn't really been serving them to a great extent yet. And that's where Luna kind of really comes in. And I think it's a good opportunity to create that large screen experience that they're looking for that was previously underserviced.
Now, you may or may not be able to answer this one. It just popped into my head with Luna. But if it's integrated with Fire TV and you've got the viewership trends, is that helpful? Some things I've been seeing recently about the trends in in-game advertising. So like you're playing a soccer game and you've got the billboards and they're actually coming up with like ads, I don't know, for like, hey, your favorite episode of the next season of this is going to drop.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility for in-game integrated advertising?
Maybe. It's not something that's huge on my radar, because when you kind of go into the whole point of our discussion here is you really want to get your businesses to scale before you start thinking about, how is this going to be monetized? And so right now we're trying to solve the customer problems through the Luna service, and not necessarily building that business to be this is an in-game component or whatnot. Now that said, when you think about some of the app developers that we have on tablet, for example, that's a big component of it. And so that is definitely something that's there, and it is a monetization stream, but it's not necessarily something that is like critical in year one of Luna, if you will, or other gaming experiences that might come to market, because we're right now, we're kind of in that early part of let's acquire customers, let's get them engaged in a way that works for them. And a large engaged customer base creates an opportunity to monetize, but it doesn't happen, that option doesn't have to happen all at the same time, if you will.
Fair enough. That is actually a nice thing to hear, that you're building from the ground up, not just with a specific goal in mind. Another thing I think with CTV that's interesting, perhaps as a future opportunity, is interactive ads, because see the ad format, even if you watch FAST and AVOD, it's still pretty much the same type of ad that you would see regularly on television, right? Like, so what is an interactive ad?
I think there was a question at at NAB last year, maybe the year before, where it's like, has the ad format really changed since it was invented? And in a lot of cases, no. I mean, there's more technology behind it, there's more insight, there's more relevancy, but I think the interactive ads and what we're doing with IMDb, or now Freevee, is, it kind of brings forward like, okay, I'm in a lean back experience, I'm now being served something that is taking me away from that viewing experience. Is it a complete ignore? Is it something that's not entertaining for me? And when you think about what you could do in that space, there's an opportunity to engage the customer, and that's where the interactive ads come in. And so that's where you can add it to cart, you can use your voice, you get the little prompt that says, click here to do something. It's working, but I think there's a delicate balance there, because you have an engaged customer watching and being entertained, and you have to be sure that you don't turn that into a full-blown shopping experience, because there's already great shopping experiences on your phone and whatnot. And so you have to find that balance between, we can do more with this medium, but using our little remote, we don't want it to turn it into, now I'm doing a full-blown shopping and I've gone away from being entertained in that lean back experience that I have. But I think that what we've been seeing with the Freevee test is really kind of, I can engage with this, I could add it to my cart, which means I can get more information later. I could buy it right now, and then I'm done and I'm back into the content that I'm trying to watch. And so that's, I think, what's important, but there's an opportunity to invent and simplify the medium of the ad that you're being shown, but you still have to be smart and delicate about what you're actually asking that customer to do. because you have them engaged, and that's ultimately what we want, is watching that medium that they want.
How has connected TV taken advantage of the change that we've seen in consumption habits?
It's accelerating, and I'll date myself here, but I started off doing the VHS to DVD transition. For those who don't know, VHS is a tape that you put in, but it took a while to get from you rent a tape to you buy a tape to then there was a DVD and then a Blu-ray, and then after Blu-ray and all of that came to market, things have really accelerated where TVOD, SVOD, AVOD, a couple different times for AVOD, and then FAST. And so the curve of customer behavior habits is changing faster. And I think the critical piece there is that you're communicating what it is that they're getting in return for not only their time and their interest in what that product is, but potentially even what their dollars are. And so definitely FAST is a huge component of what customers are interested in right now, because they've been building a subscription base where maybe they have 4 to 5 subscriptions and this costing them X per month. And now they're looking to add on top of that, but not necessarily add in more subs. And so I think that the acceleration of how quickly we're moving between formats, but then we're beginning to move back and forth, where customers are doing SVOD for a major event and then they will leave that, or maybe not utilize it as much, and then come in and find a FAST option because this is entirely free, it's easy for me to get into it, I can start watching right away. And that's adding content above and beyond what I might have already subscribed to. And so I think that is kind of the most interesting trend that really has, again, been accelerated over the last couple of years, is their customer habits are changing much, much faster, and they're starting to move between the subscription mediums faster than they were before.
Is there any tiering by demographic, mostly age, between, say, CTV adoption and perhaps more traditional linear?
Maybe. I mean, and I'm sure there's a lot of teams within our advertising groups that could answer you that question. But for me, on being kind of on the devices side, I spend less time with demographic or psychographic information. It's more about what are the habits that this customer segment is doing? Are they watching this? Are they downloading this? Are they interested in this merchandising campaign? What is resonating with them when we make a UI update? And so I have more information about the actions our customers are taking than actually the demographic that
So you're just seeing an increase in time spent on FAST and stuff like that. And that's like a tangible thing.
Yeah, and if you take back to, okay, we've got FAST content, we've got a variety of different ways for a customer to get into FAST. What else can we do to it? And so when you think about the integrations that an app developer can do, voice is a huge component. And when a customer uses voice to get into their content, navigate around the device, they're twice as active on the device than customers who aren't using voice. And so when you think about the integrations that we can do with our app developers, catalog integration, search integration, but then the voice component really becomes key. And so yes, you've got kind of the proliferation of services for FAST, but then also for AVOD. But how do you find ways to engage that customer base more? And voice is actually a critical component of that.
So we got, too bad it wasn't 60, because we're about to be gone in 60 seconds. But last minute, what are your expectations for CTV in the near future?
I knew you were going to ask this, but I don't know if I.
It's going to be great.
I don't know if I have that 60-second kind of pitch, but I think that the transition from what customers were looking for in the linear world and the problems that they dealt with on that side. I'm not a cord cutter, but I use both sides. But I think that there's a lot of customers that have been moving towards the connected TV space because there's optionality. And there's ways that customers can get into the services that they're looking for and manage their subscriptions or the content and in the way that they want to consume it, in the way that they want, right? And so I think you'll continue to see a movement, but I think that there's also, there will be innovation on the other side where there will be retention efforts to try and get, okay, now we're learning what customers are looking for, connected TV and the optionality it provides. There might be some, kind of movement on both sides. So I think that's kind of a vague way of answering your question, but I think that the space, obviously we project it to continue to grow. We continue to see customer transition, and with that comes the monetization opportunity. and that is really compelling. You just have to be efficient at how you're getting that content to customers, making it relevant, and that really provides an opportunity to think about kind of a greenfield space, not only for connected TV, but for monetization as well.
Oh, I think we'll be talking about this next year too. So.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.